All right, thanks everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. Call this meeting to order at a couple minutes after 6. I have one addition. It's under new business. It's 2024 Select Board meeting schedule approval. And can we add that to the agenda?
So move.
Yep.
All right, and I think when we bring that under new business. Any other additions or deletions? Are you hearing an approval of November 27th minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, you gotta call the vote on that. There was a motion in a second, but didn't get called.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm thinking New York Giants. All right, all those in favor of the agenda addition, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Now, approval of November 27th minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second for
I'll
discussion?
second, but I won't be able to vote.
Okay, any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I abstained.
You weren't here?
I wasn't here.
All right, moving right along, Highway, Road Commissioner report.
Mr. Chairman, Katie can fill you in with the structures grant reimbursement for the replacement of the culvert on Creek Road. Is there anything you like to add to it, that Katie, or?
It's all filled out for you in my packet, and I believe it needs all board member signatures. Total came to 182,000, and we pay a 10% match, or 182 and some change.
Make a motion that the board sign off on the structures grant for the Creek Road project.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Let me sign this real quick.
I think Kasha needs your signature too, maybe?
Yeah,
Everybody's.
everybody. Better Roads Grant,
In front of you, you should have a Better Roads grant for the bump road project. Is that correct, was it?
Yep, so this is the MRGP segment. So we're looking at stone line ditching and replacing a cross culvert and a driveway culvert. And we're applying for 18.5.
Which section is it?
The lower section, just off Route 7.
Just off Route 7.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that actually the chairman signs that on behalf of the board.
Second.
And I did have our PC review it by today, so it's all set to go.
also, okay, good. The motion made, seconded, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Yes, go ahead.
Is that grant, is that like, Katie said, is that a yearly grant or how often is that available?
Better Roads is annually.
Annually.
We apply right now, and we hope to have an award, so we could use it after July 1st.
Okay.
But
You
it's
said
very-
1850, is that 18,500?
Yes.
And it's very specific about where the state has identified that we have erosion issues.
Oh, it's erosion, okay.
There's
Municipal Roads General Permit.
yeah.
Hydrologically connected.
There's a map that the state basically released to us through the program, and we have to apply based on what they identified.
That and water quality. And
Yeah.
Okay, approval of select board warrants. They're right here if anybody wants to look at them. Guest, anybody want to be a guest? Art? Bob?
I would like to say Merry Christmas to the select board and all town employees.
Well, thank you,
Thank you,
Bob.
Bob.
I'm back
Thank you,
at you, dude. you wanna speak at this time?
Yeah, if I can, Mike.
Yep.
Please do.
State Representative Art Peterson. I just asked for a couple minutes of your time. Just going around to the towns I represent, and thought I would just propose or ask if there are concerns you have that you want me to bring to the legislature in this section.
How long of a list do you want?
And Tom Burns
Okay,
is the
I
same
didn't
in
bring my
West
sleeping
Rutland.
bag.
How deep's the water and which river?
I think for me, Art, and I'll be brave and speak up first. I think the scariest thing is what's come out in the last couple weeks about what's going to happen with education funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're hearing it also. I think Clarendon's not unique in the fact that we have year after year after year squeezed the municipal side to try to make sure that we're not
I know.
overwhelming things, but yet year after year after year we get unbelievable education increases that are
Yeah.
eating up,
Yeah.
and taxpayers are knocking on our door saying,
Yep.
"Look what you're doing to us," and it's not us. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's not the town.
You know, when we
So-
formed this union, maybe George can help me on this.
Sure.
It was, the understanding was, it was gonna save taxpayers money. Now, in these other communities that are part of our union, do they still have, schools in their towns like that?
Which towns do you mean?
Like Shrewsbury,
I
Teignmouth?
believe they still have,
Oh, yeah,
have a school,
Shrewsbury still
sure.
has a school.
And Teignmouth still has a school, I
Yes.
believe.
Isn't everything under the so-called union or whatever it's called?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the town doesn't have any of the schools.
No.
That one union.
Correct.
district.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The real issue, Art, and question I have for you is there any discussion on education across the board? Because in my mind, there's only one way that we'll ever save money in Vermont significantly on education. And it's a word that nobody wants to hear, but it's the only way to do it, and that's consolidation,
Consolidation.
period.
I was at a meeting, it was on Zoom today, or electronic, wasn't Zoom, but with the Southwest
Supervisory
superintendents.
union?
Yeah,
Yep.
it was the Mill River Superintendent, Otter Valley,
Yep.
and all the ones south of Bennington.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that came up. You know, unfortunately at these meetings, not much gets done. More gets talked about than ever gets done. I'm not on the Ed committee, so my knowledge of all things education isn't great. But believe me, we're all in the same boat, hearing the cry of this, of an 18% raise. Now, two of the superintendents said that they were not going to see significant raises. It depends on the economic status of your students, quite frankly.
Yes.
Sure.
Some of the towns are going to get hit hard, other towns won't get hit hard. My guess is we might not get hit that hard. I'm not sure. We'll have to find out how it comes out. But the whole thing needs to be discussed on how we do education and how we consolidate districts and eliminate administrative burden, I think is big. And what is the state asking schools to do? One of the things we hear, and you learn something every time you go to something like this. I asked, what are we going to do to raise test scores? Because that's my thing. I mean, you know, you hear the test score results are terrible. What are we going to do to raise them? And you come to hear that there's such a shortage of teachers
There
that
is.
we have people teaching who aren't certified to teach, is what I heard. Now, I don't know how that they're not totally qualified teachers. They're somehow less than that.
They're
Now, for
under
this
they're under
district-
emergency. I can speak to it. They're under emergency licensure.
Yeah, you
So
know.
they go under emergency licensure with a probationary period to get their license within X number of typically months or years, and they're allowed to get that license, and then they can teach while they have the interim, and then have to
okay.
fulfill it.
And the thought process there is that now the administrator has to spend more time in those classrooms because the teacher is, I know, but that's what I heard.
Jan has a question.
I
Art.
actually have two questions. I haven't been in the districts teaching for a long time, but when we merged as a union, did that mean that the teacher contracts also merged, or are they still separate like they were?
They
I
are,
believe they're merged now.
they're
I
all-
believe
they're
that
all
was
one
The high
contract.
school and the elementary schools, I believe, are separate.
So they're still separate.
well the elementary and the but all the element
elementary.
they had to
Yes.
merge school to school.
But they're
Yeah.
separate from the high school.
Yep, thank you,
And,
Nicole.
and then, just another question is, if they consider consolidation among a couple of districts, would that also mean a merge of contracts with teachers?
That's one of the things that you would iron out at the time you started talking about it. I mean, from the
Theoretically,
standpoint of
yes.
the numbers that I'm familiar with from when I was on the board, we could have all of the elementary school kids in our district would be in one building that we now have. It's that simple. And,
They
you
would
know,
all fit.
yes, they
Yeah,
would.
there'd be room, actually.
What's that?
There'd be still room in the school, actually, if you look at the numbers they have right now.
Yes, I agree 100%.
But does that mean that they would still have to hire a certain amount of teachers? Or does that mean that instead of having 10 kids in the class, you'll have
I just know
15?
capacity.
That's the subject nobody wants to talk about.
Well, the other subject that drives some of this, and Jan hit on a little bit with the teacher's contract, is the rising cost of healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an interesting letter written, and that's I'm on the healthcare committee, so it kind of piqued my interest the other day. Doug Hoffer, who's the state auditor, put a report out about ways to solve. Let's put the money to education, not to healthcare, and he had an interesting way to try to hold that down. So I'm going to pursue that. I sent it to our chair in healthcare, see if we can have a discussion about how we can knock a 16% rise in healthcare for teachers. And it's just like, when you start doing that, I mean, it just has a trickle down effect to everything. So I know it's a huge issue. I don't know where it will lead. I'm sure a lot will be said about it. I hope a lot can be done about it.
I'm on the board of trustees down at the vet's home.
Yeah.
And they've had the same kind of issues relative to health with the union, state union going there. And even the union doesn't appreciate, it's all bad news to the public, and they're catching hell too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they are. And you know, it's a tough issue that we're all going to have to face. So I'm well aware of that, and I will bring your concern to them.
I think, and what I would say is it goes beyond just education. The dollars and cents are pretty scary the last couple of years. I mean, the amount of things. I had somebody talking to me, you know, they got their vehicle registration and how much it went
I
up.
know.
We got, you know, all of the different places that we're getting
Yep.
hit
Yep.
across the board.
Yep.
I mean, it's not just one place.
Yep.
It's all across the board.
Yeah,
And
I know.
you know as well as I think
know.
most of us sitting behind the table here anyway have the opinion that it's just on an unsustainable trajectory.
Yeah,
There's
and I fear that it's going to continue this year. Next year. I really worry about what we're going to consider going forward here. And I'll just throw out other things that might be affecting town here, not for me to take the lead, but I know in Rutland Town, one of the things was crime and public safety.
Still, it is for us too.
It is, yeah, I assume it is here. There are folks working on that. There are bills being proposed to try to turn things around a little. We've really, not me, but the legislature has slowly eaten away at some of the fabric of law enforcement to the point where we need to start correcting back. The catch and release thing is not a good way to go, I don't think, but there's some bills being proposed that hopefully have partisan support among everybody to change that back some. Now, what will come out of it and what can be forged out of it, I don't know. But I know crime's at the head of our are things that we're concerned about.
Yeah.
Anything else, or?
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
It's gonna be interesting to see if the school budget passes.
Well, I think that news that came out
Yeah.
is gonna be the death knell of a lot of them. I just think that it is. It may be done on purpose, you know, to cause that to happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. I gotta think it's a big issue with its
Our,
boards.
was, a couple of years ago, they were, at the state level, they were talking about alternative financing for education. And they said there was gonna be a discussion on it at the legislature. Was there anything done on that?
First of all, it's so complex now. I don't know if you're aware of how.
You ask them, you know, what's driving the cost? They can't tell you because, we don't know the common appraisal value,
I mean,
whatever
you
you call it.
sit there for 3 hours and
Yeah.
listen to it, and then you don't understand it. I have not heard anything come out of any bill or anything that's talked about it. Many people have said it needs to change, but that's easy. It's getting it done that's hard.
So that would be done, in the education committee?
The education, somebody would have to propose a bill or propose something that would fundamentally change how education, it's paid for by property tax, it's paid for
Yeah, that's what
by
the
the state
discussion
tax,
is.
it's paid for by, I think, the Clean Water Fund contributes, the lottery contributes. It's contributed for all kinds of places.
Solar is,
Well,
solar panels are paying into it.
Really, yeah. And whatever the state contributes, the local part is what the school boards decide on, how much of a local burden it becomes. So
Is this just an issue in our state, or do you know?
I don't know, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's, I bet if you look across the board, the cost of education ballooned everywhere, but I don't know it.
What kills Vermont? I mean, the small
Scale.
tax base.
Yep.
You got a small tax base and you got
Well,
increases in education like you see, you just can't.
Right. And the lack of kids, as the
Well,
kids drop.
Seems though with the lack of kids, the cost would go down.
No,
It goes up. Fewer
it's
kids
actually
you
just
got.
the opposite.
Fewer kids you got, the
Yeah.
price goes up.
Well, I mean, you still have to heat the building, you still have to maintain things, you still have to do all these things for fewer kids, and
That's Danny's
it's
point. Yeah,
tough.
maintenance of buildings and stuff.
The marginal cost of kids.
Yeah. I know it's a tough issue. I wish I had better things to say about it. I really don't
Grab a hold
know.
of somebody at the education. Back when you do.
You'll never see me again. Probably.
Oh, I've been up there, I know how
I know where
that.
your grandkids are. One more question.
We
Yeah.
homeschool.
Has the topic of closing Shrewsbury and Wallingford and Plymouth ever been discussed? I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking that's, I know, I swear I've heard that so many times before, but it hasn't ever really been looked at.
I don't know.
Well, back when I was on the school board, which is a couple of years now, maybe more, I can't remember, but there was discussion to the extent of, gee, wouldn't it be nice? But that's as far as it went, and I did a lot of that, but,
Never really been brought up.
it does not, part of the original idea behind all the consolidation that went on a few years ago is so that you would have a larger group of folks that might vote on something. Like now the votes are all collected together from Wallingford and Timoth and Clarendon and Wallingford on anything that is decided. It's all commingled votes. And the idea is if you have a bigger group voting, that you might be able to change enough people to vote one way or the other in terms of things like consolidation that we're talking about right now. And so far, nobody's tried it, but there's nothing that could stop these 4 towns from getting together and decide what we're gonna consolidate here. You can do it. But you just gotta have the drive and the powers to persuade people to think about it.
Do all the towns, I think, have to vote to approve if a school closed too? I think that was part of it.
Yes, that was part of it. To close a school, to close a school in our district, you have to have two things. You have to have a unanimous vote on the board and a town vote would be unanimous. The board vote would have to be unanimous. Sorry. Did I say that right?
Town vote?
Yeah, I thought I
Town
did.
vote would just be the.
Town vote's gotta be majority.
That's what I'm trying to say. And the school board has to be unanimous. Thank you.
George, I have one more question about this.
Sure, who said that? Oh,
Randy Wilhelm. Did anybody ever come up with a calculation of how much money would be saved if all these schools were consolidated in one building?
there has been some calculations done years ago by a guy that wrote about school funding for a long time. And he was superintendent in Otter Valley. That Bill,
Not this.
but he did quite a few papers on the fact that what would happen and how it worked that were pretty accurate from my recollection.
Was there a number ever thrown out when you were doing this work? When you were doing it?
What's that?
Was there ever a number thrown out when you were doing it for the four
Yeah, I mean-
schools in the district?
What you're saving is you're saving the cost of the teachers, and and now where we have a shortage of teachers, might be some time to think about consolidation, because that means you're throwing less people out of work, if you want to look at it that way, which I think you need to, and all these costs associated, like healthcare and the whatever that goes along with that. And you can have a school bus and a driver a whole lot cheaper. And that's the whole point. I mean, New York does a lot of consolidation, as I understand it, just across our border here. So, and somebody's got to start that ball rolling, and folks that are concerned about being in office and are concerned about continually getting voted, are they going to shy away for it? I mean, I think about back when they were talking about this same-sex marriage, the number of people that stood up and said, yes, let's do it, and never weren't voted back to the legislature, which is what can happen, and that's kind of what our system is about. But on the school question, we need some folks that are willing. Now, I know Art well enough to know if it came up that he would try to vote and, make whatever makes common sense. Did I misquote you, or?
No.
So, that's the issue. You gotta have the courage to do it.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, any other questions for Art? Art,
Thank you, Art.
thanks, Art.
Yeah,
Good
no
job,
problem.
appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Go Army.
Absolutely.
Interesting game.
Yeah.
All right, any public comments? Anybody? All right, old business, Cold River Plan funding update.
So in your packet,
Oh, yeah.
I sent you guys an email last week about some funding information that I figured out. I think there should be some clarification. In the past, when we were talking about river maintenance, I believe Fitzgerald, when he sent us an email, he was describing a sediment management plan. So that's like one route we can go. And another option is called an alternatives analysis, which would determine risks in order to reduce future flood hazards. So I've been speaking with Josh Carvajal. He's our river engineer in this area. I've talked with Vermont Emergency Management about the FEMA funding available. So the FEMA funding program is called BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Fund. And it does not look like a sediment management plan would qualify for that type of funding. So if the goal is sediment management, I believe that would have to be funded on the town side. And then out of that, depending on the results, there could be future opportunities for like construction projects through the, it's like the state program called Flood Resilient Communities Fund.
So what's the benefits? Can we document both? It's kind of sounding in the email like it's either or.
Well, I think it would be a process if you wanted to start with the alternatives analysis. And then from there, depending on what that concludes, you could take it in a direction of a sediment management plan. However, in speaking with Josh, he said it's not conclusive that that's going to be the results that you get from that.
So the recommendation then would be to start with the alternatives, like start in that area and then morph into the sediment piece second. Is that what I'm hearing? You're nodding, Cash. Is that what your understanding is?
That's the way I understand it, build into it.
I don't know if you'll likely get funding from federal or state for sediment management.
I see here in
Correct,
your
but that's
note-
why I'm saying our first order of business should be to identify the other hazards. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Josh, in your note to us, Josh is more open to issue a permit for sediment removal. It was proven that is necessary for solid information. Am I correct?
Yeah. If we had, and he said that to us over the years, if you have a sediment management plan in place and the results say that you need to remove sediment to bring it back to historic levels, he's more open to issue a permit because it's based on solid science.
But the sediment management is less likely to get funding than the
Exactly.
alternative.
Yes.
No,
That's the hitch.
Oh, wait.
Right. You just said no.
the sediment management is not likely to be funded.
Right.
Right,
Like I said,
that's
yeah.
what he, yeah.
So
I guess my only worry is that you'll pay for an alternatives analysis plan and it may not conclude what you want to get done down there. If your goal is to protect the Cold River Bridge.
Danny, you and Mike have been involved with this a little bit.
Well, even if it's to armor or shoring up,
You need the whole program in place of the
yeah,
settlement
that identifies one or the other. Or
all
both,
together.
or-
Otherwise, you're going to end up with 20-foot walls with a big tunnel, and then after 30 years, that's going to build up.
Right.
But there are programs out there in different agencies that we might be able to get more funding from. If we go in with a plan, we have something in place that we can present to them.
So the most important first step is a plan.
well, and based on the way I'm reading it, we're talking about two different entities. Fitzgerald would have to put together the sediment management plan.
He's able to. There's other engineers.
The engineer work for the sediment management. You're talking the feds are going to have to do the brick.
Well, I think we have to go through the procurement process on finding an engineer.
They would still have to have that. They would
So I guess then in that case, the logical question is, can Fitzgerald do both of them at once?
Well, there was some. I was cautioned to be careful in speaking with Fitzgerald because FEMA is very strict, and he's already done the river corridor plans
Cautioned about what?
about like having any further correspondence with him until this is awarded. If we get it awarded.
What are we,
Okay, so what are we talking about?
basically-
What are we talking about? Yeah, what are we getting awarded?
If you went the route of the FEMA brick funding and you did an alternatives analysis and you want to go with Fitzgerald because he's already developed the river corridor plans, I was cautioned just be careful.
Okay.
They thought that might be an unfair advantage to him.
He's already done the plan.
He knows what.
He knows already.
Right,
That's the
Whole
federal
polls.
government for you. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
but
out
it's
of
sort of-
yeah.
It's up to him whether he wants to give you the benefit of his knowledge or go into it like, oh,
Start
this is
over.
brand new.
So I guess the rubber needs to meet the road here somewhere. What are we being asked for tonight?
well, the brick funding is an extensive bear of an application for FEMA, and so that is due like January 12th.
Okay.
So if I'm going that route, I need to get on that.
Okay.
But I'm
And that's for a grant to cover the study.
the alternatives analysis study.
Usually do
Wanna
it.
make-
So we're applying, so ultimately we're applying for a grant to get funding to be able to do the engineering
Want
work.
to make a motion for that?
Well, that's, I want to clarify.
I'm not
Clarify
sure
that
it's
first.
like engineering work. I mean, you're using an engineer, but you're not going to get your levels for historic channels because that's
30%.
Well, that's sediment
Right.
management.
Right.
That's a separate,
Yeah.
you're saying that's separate.
yes, from my understanding.
If we do the FEMA one though, can we still do the sediment one, or does it?
That's what I'm trying to, that's what I'm
I-
trying to narrow
I
in on.
think you
Can we do
can.
both?
I think you can, but not simultaneously, because I think the first alternatives analysis is going to put you to like what your risks are.
Okay.
What you're talking about is we gotta look at it as a two-step process.
Right.
Do the analysis first, and then as we learn what we're getting from our information from that, then we wanna think about the sediment.
Yeah, I think in speaking with Josh and Stephanie, they felt like maybe Clarendon has already come to conclusion that sediment is the issue, and FEMA would like to see everything identified.
So what is the cost? Do we have an idea of the cost on the first one?
I want to say that maybe Mount Tabor applied for something. I think Josh said between 30 and 60,000.
I can't hear you.
Between 30 and 60,000.
30 and 60.
Okay,
Sound like you shouldn't want to ask that question.
So
Which is
probably not.
while this is fresh in on FEMA's plate, because right now FEMA is still pretty active around here with everything that happened over the summer, I would make the motion that we go ahead and have Katie start applying for the brick.
So your second for discussion.
Yes, I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Do we have any input from?
That's a step in the right direction for starters then.
Right. Is, what is the potential coverage for that grant? All of it? 50% of it? I really don't know.
Not yet, I guess.
Most of them are like 15 or 10 to 20%, aren't they?
That's what I would assume is
For the town,
75.
or
Yeah.
Yeah.
15.
Town share, say
10%,
20%.
Yeah, the rest.
90% or whatever.
It could be 6,000 or 12,000.
Cost share is 75% federal, 25% local.
Oh, okay.
How much was it?
75% federal,
That's
25%.
All right, there's a,
So do you
Motion.
need an estimate to apply for the grant?
I haven't gotten into the portal to review it.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk with Vermont Emergency Management and Josh a little bit
this
more.
is our first step is to initiate.
Well, I think what we're asking is for Katie to start the process, so at least we can get more information.
Yeah.
If there's pieces of this that don't look good or whatever, which it's highly financial, so I'm assuming Katie's going to work with Heidi on it anyway. If there's stuff that comes up that's like, yeah, we don't want to get into that, then we have this other angle where we can just say, well, let's just hire Fitzgerald and start the sediment
yeah,
plan.
exactly.
I mean, but let's see what the federal money that's there can cover first. That's what I'd like to see.
What
All
they're
right.
gonna do is hire an engineer.
Sure.
Through
Right.
They call it preliminary, 30% engineering of the whole process. Then they come up with a figure after that.
Sure. Yep.
What it's gonna cost.
Yep. No, absolutely.
All right,
Who
there's,
seconded
motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Looks like that carried. All right, Quarterline Road follow-up. All right, Katie, you wanna fill us in on?
I'm not sure if it was last meeting or the meeting before. We reached out to Rutland Town about where they're at with Quarterline Road Class 4 maintenance. So in front of you is their response, which I believe was they will maintain it according to their Class 4 policy.
Has this information gone out to the citizens on Quarterline that have been very
I
interested?
have not forwarded it, but I have the class 4 policy here if you guys.
The long and the short of it is minimum, if any,
Yes.
is my read on it.
Well, here's his, good afternoon, Katie. Thank you, Bill. It's, the board did discuss this topic at their recent meeting. Consensus they came to is, absent any agreement with your select board on road maintenance, we will maintain our section of the road per our class 4 road maintenance policies. I could not remember if I shared it with you previously, so I have attached a copy for you.
I believe everybody has seen that policy as far as I know.
So,
Copies of that policy, I've had it for a long time.
so I guess my question is to, based on this, I guess, and again, I didn't go to that meeting that information was trickling out of that I wasn't at, because it was while I was working, but we seem to have gone from a contractor's gonna do it, and like this is kind of feels like a seesaw back and forth. The last 2 weeks I've done a lot of thinking about this, especially after seeing this response. And one of the things that we have done in the past is we've come into we did this with the state years ago, where we did a winter maintenance only trade, and there was no money exchanged. It was just a no, like it was a quid pro quo is not the right word, but it was an agree. You were on the board then, I think, when that happened. It was just a winter maintenance, and it was winter maintenance only. In other words, we're not touching it otherwise. It's still your road. You have to maintain it otherwise, but we will simply plow and sand it only. So what I would throw on the table for tonight to go to Rutland Town with is I would make a motion that the town of Clarendon seek to enter into an agreement to trade the Rutland Town half mile, or roughly half mile, of Quarterline Road, and I haven't clocked it, but I think it's close to a half mile, from Billings Sugar House to Elfresia Road, and to do a trade. They're driving that section of road anyway, so have them do that portion of Creek Road, and we will do the portion of Quarterline Road, so that it's basically an even swap, and I make that a motion.
Okay, let me understand. You're saying that they would do the winter maintenance on the section that you talked about. Okay.
And we would do the winter maintenance.
It's going to be from Billings Sugar House to
Elfresia.
Elfresia
The
Road.
tire section.
Yeah, gotcha.
Roughly, I have not clocked it, but it's got to be roughly
It's pretty close.
in the ballpark of the same distance.
It's got to be, I would think. I will second.
All right. Before we go to the motion, or
Vote on it.
the vote, let's hear some of what the public comments might be. Anybody want to talk to that?
Well, I just was wondering, I didn't have any idea about why we would trade something down on the Quick Road, but I just did a quick estimation of what I thought it was gonna cost the town, being very generous, toward, inflating the cost. To do that piece of road, the Quarterline Road, it's half a mile. It's 0.52 from the town line to Pete Billings' driveway, which is part of the paved puddle, so it could make it easy to turn around and come back. I figured out that it cost about $46 to make that run, inclusive of every cost that the town incurs, which includes the depreciation on the truck, the plow, sander, which I put in at $250,000. I'm guessing they don't cost quite that much. A 10-year operating life, $25,000 maintenance just on that truck, right? Assuming that the truck operates for 2,000 hours a year, and the operator is being paid $40 an hour, including all of his benefits. fuel is $5 a gallon, and you plow at 15 miles an hour, my calculation comes out to $46 to do that piece of road. Takes 2/10 of an hour to drive down and drive back at 15 miles an hour. I'm not sure how fast you guys plow, so it's just a rough calculation because I don't know all the details of how fast you plow and, you know, how much. I figured using about a quarter of a ton of sand per mile. How much sand do you use per mile?
How about that?
A quarter of a ton per mile. And this didn't even count the fact that you sand in both directions, Cash? Or just one? Do you sand in both directions or just one?
Mostly one because you're already plowing down and then you don't want to plow
Okay,
sand
so
back.
this actually includes sanding in both directions, so it's even more overinflated. So it cost us, town, $46 a run to do this, all right? And then the question is how much would Rutland be willing to give us per run to do this? Right? We could actually have them pay us to do this if they wanted to pay us. But I'd have to have all the information about that particular truck. Is that, Cash, is that always done with that big
All the tandem.
14, the 10-wheeler?
The tandems, yes.
Okay, so always done with that big truck. And
Because-
how big is the box in that, 13, 14 yards?
12 yard on that one.
12 yards on that one. So that's why I'm in the right ballpark here then.
Right.
All right. So if I had all that information, I could do a calculation to the penny about what it would cost to go down and back. Because I don't know what the total maintenance on that truck is. And does that truck go for 10 years? Is that a 10-year life on that
Yeah,
truck?
that's about the average.
Okay, so this is all the right kind of stuff, barring any errors in the math. So I don't know, how many snowstorms do we plow a year? 10? Well, I don't know,
Yeah, it's
in an
given.
average year, 10, 12?
You know, it's given.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say 20 for the sake of discussion.
I picked 10. So you're talking about $460. Let's round it off to $500 a year is what our cost would be. Now, you could actually, I think the actual cost up to the town would be a lot less than that. So the question is, how much can you charge Rutland on a per run basis to do the work? Say, look, it's going to cost us $50 a run, or maybe it's going to be less. It might be $35 a run. So then I'm just throwing this out because nobody seems to have ever had a price on this, so I decided to price it off the top of my head. But doing this kind of work for 30 years, for all kinds of plowing clients, I kind of know what stuff costs. So anyway, so the question is the idea of having them trade. It's not a bad idea. I mean, they did plow and sand it just this last little storm, right? But the problem is, where are we on the hierarchy of stuff they have to do when there's a storm?
That's the question, right
That's
there.
More than 2 inches.
It's more than 2 inches. They have a 1 foot storm. We have a 1 foot storm. At some point during the storm, Clarendon's going to come through with the truck and do our piece.
Yes.
Okay, and then turn around at the town line, which is not a pretty sight here.
4-point turn this morning.
4-point turn this morning. You have to have a witness, and then turn around and come back. Whereas they could just drive right through, sand, not sanding because you wouldn't sand on the way down. Turn around and just Pete Billings' driveway, turn around, come back, plow the other way and sand, and you're on your way. So, I don't know. That's. I'd have to get a bunch of details. That probably, the town has. I have to go through the information about what the truck costs and what the driver's being paid and all his benefits and all that stuff. You come up with a real number per run.
Now that's interesting, you've gone through a list, you did some homework, looked hard to me, but what do you think of what Bob or Robbie has, made a motion on?
Well, what it is that's not a bad idea. I like the idea if somehow you can hold Rutland Road Commissioner's feet to the fire to put us on a hierarchy schedule.
Well, we would be doing yours. We would be doing you.
We'd be doing us.
Yep. It'd be just right.
I'm good.
We would be doing you.
I'm good. Stop right there.
I'd like to interject here, though. I like to say, what Wayne's saying is hold the roll in town. Now, I live on that section of Creek Road.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy.
However you want to go, but I'm familiar with how and Hubbard's has been the people in the past doing that section of road around town. And I'm familiar, you know, it's a distinct difference. When I come down my driveway, and sometimes they beep the horn when they go by in the morning.
Well, you're
I
not up
make a
yet.
left on Creek Road, and I start heading towards Rutland. Right there at the town line, my in-laws, the Billings, there's a distinct difference between Clarendon Road and Rutland Town. And that section of Rutland Town seems to be, I don't know, lack of, like the least attentive in a lot of things, because it's out there all by itself. You know.
See, so, and this is nothing against Cash, but I drive that road every morning when we have school. And I would respectfully disagree with you, and I usually am holding my breath until I hit the Rutland Town line. That's my perspective. And then, again, nothing against Clarendon, but
It's all timing.
that's that in the morning when I'm going. Usually, I find that section's better.
But the
So
only thing that I'm saying is, if, you know, how are we gonna hold,
Are we gonna hold Rutland Town accountable?
right, to,
well, I guess what I would say is we first need to find out if they're even interested.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't have
I mean, it's only half
we can
done.
sit here and for the next hour go over the what ifs.
I mean,
But
it's-
until we
In my
know.
case, it's only half a mile is paved road, and I can go down.
Yeah.
It's not what these people, I have to agree with these people face with potholes and ravines and everything rolling through there and stuff like that. I mean, I drive down, it's half miles paved road. But I'm just saying, is how are we gonna hold, what's going,
Then you and Robert need to just coordinate your
But I think to Rob's point, this is just
See if they're interested.
it's just,
Yeah.
we're trying to negotiate. And that's what you folks has all come to all these meetings, has wanted us to do. And so,
But I like the idea. And I, speaking for myself, I'm not necessarily opposed to, swapping, as you have described in your motion. And if that's what we need to do for this moment, it does not solve the pothole issue,
Let's
which
not go
is,
there yet.
I know. And
baby steps?
we've been doing this since last spring, for crying out loud. And Rutland Town doesn't have the equipment to grade that section of road. So I'm not opposed to what you're proposing. That we have had to go through what we're going through for this length of period of time. It's really hard, and the potholes are really bad again, and Rutland Town is trying to do something about it, but here we are.
may I suggest that this is a little break in the ice, crack in the ice? That this is an opportunity for them and our town to all of a sudden start working together. So, in my opinion. So, the next step is, well, potholes and stuff like this. Let's get one thing at a time, because otherwise it's going to be this again. So, I think
Well,
I think it's a good suggestion,
don't-
motion.
I don't have a problem with it. I do see the back and forth like this. It has nothing to do with Rutland Town. Clarendon's making some headway here, which we very much appreciate. And I think, Robert, you've done a nice job of coming up with an alternative for the moment. I will state for the record, still pretty frustrated that we aren't able to take care of this, for goodness sakes, all at once. But if this is all we can get, then we'll take it.
Yeah, this is opening the door a little bit. So, let's try
This has
that.
been a pretty darn hard door to open,
Yeah.
but
Gotta lift
we
it.
get it. We get it.
All right, there's been a motion made, seconded, we've had some brief discussion. Not so brief. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so I'll vote to go along with this.
So it's for 3-1
It's
vote.
3-1 vote.
I do have a quick question though. Teresa watched Joe turn around this morning there. It was a 4-point turn. And Probably didn't time him, but I bet he could have gone down to Pete's driveway, turned around and come back in the same amount of time it took him to turn around.
It was pretty precarious, and this morning wasn't that much of a challenge because there wasn't a lot of snow there. And I'm not criticizing Joe's turnaround. I mean, he was polite, you know, he did what he needed to do, but there was room for him to maneuver. But when we have, you know, higher snow banks and a lot more snow to plow, it is a lot harder, and it is a lot tighter in that area, and it could be a safety issue for sure.
I'd like to say something, for all due respect. I totally understand, but there's other things that could lead this down the road with other issues within town. That's where I stand on it. With the
I
class
don't
4
know
road,
what you mean.
with the class
Cash.
4 road and stuff like that.
So what specifically would be your concern?
Setting preference on, you know, other class 4 road that we have and the landowners on that road.
What road?
A Horton Road.
So Horton Road is a private road,
No,
right?
it's not.
No, it's not.
Town
It's
road.
class
It's a
4,
town
it's a
road.
town
Class 4
road.
town
And if
road.
they want it plowed, then they need to do what we're doing. Simple as that. We have a safety issue going
I'm
on.
just making that comment for the record, that's all.
You said that from day one. We see it differently.
Uh-huh. And everybody has their own opinion.
Yep,
Thank you.
sure.
All right,
Is that message to Rutland Town communicated email or a letter?
I think you can email Bill and respond and just say,
we've had this agreement among the select board. Majority of the select board, let me,
I would
Agree to
suggest,
disagree.
if I may, be so bold, and I know, Robbie, that you're pressed for time with your job, but maybe you and Katie spend a couple of minutes and draft something to send to Bill Sweet on this topic. I mean,
I'm willing to look at whatever she drafts.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
fine.
I'll
Yeah,
send
that's
it to
okay.
you.
all right, moving right along, new business. 2023 E911 Map review.
This was kind of just an FYI for you guys. Matt and I are the E911 coordinators for the town. There's a 2023 annual review, so we've both looked at it. I just found one spelling error. I believe it's supposed to be Clarendon Springs Lane. They had it noted as Clarendon Spring Lane. So, with your approval, I'll be submitting that.
So moved.
Yeah, so we don't need to take a vote on that. go
No,
ahead.
you're, it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Do it.
All right. 2024 Select Board schedule.
Seems reasonable to me from when I looked at it.
So, and we'll post this on the site, right?
Yeah, I'll get it before, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, do we post something like this at the transfer station or in the,
I think it's usually posted at all of our
okay,
post office, town hall, transfer station.
that's good. Anybody want a copy of this before you leave?
It's usually also printed in the town report.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I just try to get it done before the end of the year, so beginning of the year, you know when your next meeting.
Be on the website anyway.
So I will not be available August 12th. I know we've adjusted those a couple different times.
So
What,
last
February
year,
you're talking, or what?
August.
August 12th.
August, okay.
Last year I think we canceled and only did one in August.
Yep.
yeah, we kind of just like see where we were at.
Well,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was because we had a couple of members that weren't gonna be
Yeah.
here. So we'll play it by ear, I think, Rob, if that's all right.
You want to do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's better to do it that way, because your schedule may change in terms of whatever you're thinking about or deciding.
The fair's the same week every year.
What I was getting at is that to pick an alternate day may
Yeah.
not be the easiest thing to do, but
No,
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was, go to Disney World. or-
No,
Okay,
it's the fair.
okay. I should have known that.
So the question is, how will you fare?
All right. Heidi, do you have anything else you want to report?
Just wanted to note, we had another budget workshop before this meeting, and we're going to continue. We're eyeballs deep in budget time. Going to continue before our next regularly scheduled select board meeting, hour before it, 5 p.m. on December 27th. We're making some pretty good headway. Yeah, that's all I have.
Good how you present that to the board. Not all of us are paying attention that much. Except when it comes to paying taxes. Katie, do you have anything you'd like?
I believe it was last week I forwarded you guys an update with the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. We had showed the NRCS guy a couple different sites, but it looked like the Otter Creek site will be the only eligible one. So they're going to notify us if they get funding. I think it's from Congress for that. Also, I had submitted a property for possible Vermont Emergency Management buyout. And they're not 100% sure that buyout should go with I think it's Building Resilient Fund. It might have to go through a different fund. So I'm going to be talking with Vermont Emergency Management for more information on that.
Bob, anything from the listers you want to?
As we went through past year, waiting for the state to tell us the next step in their software conversion. Supposedly, come 2024, we're entirely on the new system, but half of it we haven't seen yet or heard anything about. And we're supposed to have all sorts of new qualifications, but they haven't defined those yet either. So we're just doing the same old.
Living the dream.
Until they
as
tell
they
us
say.
something different.
Kevin, do you have anything cemetery-wise? Any update?
Straighten up the door and put it back in the receiving vault.
Okay, that's right over here next to the town hall.
Still open for tours.
Yeah. I have no comment on that one. Robbie, do you have any concerns?
Nope, not tonight.
Me either. George?
Do I have something? Well, let me see, 4 or 5, no, I guess not.
Okay,
I'm all set.
okay.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Holidays and be safe.
So moved.
All right, all in favor of the motion
Yes, aye.
to adjourn?
Wednesday the 27th.
All right.